Welcome to the Wire to Wire podcast. As always, it's me, your host Yusuf. Now, without further ado, let's just get right to it. Former NBA player Carmelo Anthony has been officially inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. You guys could probably tell by the jersey and the rookie poster I have in the back, but he was one of my favorite players growing up, and he's one of my favorite players all time. So seeing him get inducted into the Hall of Fame, that moment just hit different. Pause. So he was drafted with the third pick of the 2003 NBA draft to the Denver Nuggets, and his career since that time has been nothing short of incredible. However, some don't hold him in high of a regard as I personally do, but when I think about Carmelo Anthony and his legacy, I think about a storied career, and if anything, he was actually underrated for the type of career that he had. From the way he played the game, his skill set, it was impeccable. The footwork, the balance of strength, the power, as well as the speed, the fluidity in his movements, and how smooth his game was. He could play in the post, he could face up. He had the speed and quickness that he could blow by his defenders and get to the paint at will. He was an incredible mid range scorer or shooter. He later even adapted his game and incorporated the catch and shoot three into his repertoire. And of course, as a freshman in 2003, he won the national championship for Syracuse. And then later on in 2003, he was drafted by the Denver Nuggets and he revitalized a franchise that was in the basketball trenches. The year before he was drafted, they finished 17 and 65. When they drafted him as a rookie, he led them to the playoffs while also averaging 21 points per game and averaging 6.1 rebounds per game, right? And again, he led them to the playoffs in the tough Western Conference. So, in my opinion, he was actually robbed of the Rookie of the Year award. He averaged more points, more rebounds. His team had a better record, finishing 43 and 39, and led them to the playoffs in the tough Western Conference. So there is no doubt that he deserved to win the Rookie of the Year award. But we know there's a lot of politics involved that ended up costing him the Rookie of the Year award. Throughout his career, he has been a model of consistency. His scoring prowess led him to winning a scoring title, and he also scored the most points in Knicks basketball history with 62 points against the Charlotte, I think it was the Charlotte Bobcats, if I'm not mistaken. At that time, they were called the Charlotte Bobcats. And in 2013, I believe that he was robbed of the MVP award, similar to how he was robbed for the Rookie of the Year award to the same player. Now remember, when KD joined the Warriors, the media would always consistently say that if you play on a super team, you're not eligible for the MVP award. Because KD was on a super team Warriors, he was not eligible to win an MVP award. That's what the media said. So, by that logic, the Miami Heat were a super team. So, Carmelo Anthony should have actually won the MVP award in the 2012 going into 2013 NBA season. The New York Knicks had the second best record in the Eastern Conference, winning 54 games that year. So he definitely deserved to win the MVP award in 2013. And there's nothing anyone can do to change my mind on that. He was robbed. And although he's never made it to the finals or won a championship, I think that was more so a byproduct of his circumstances rather than an indicator of him not being a winning player. And he mentioned it in his Hall of Fame speech that not winning a ring is something that would be held against him, but he was content with that. And I believe it's something that should not be held against him. For the first 7.5 years of his career, he was playing in the tough Western Conference, and he would consistently run up against teams that would either go on to make the finals or win championships altogether. He's going up against Tim Duncan's Spurs, Kobe Bryant's Lakers, right, in 2008 and 2009. And in 2010, I remember, yes, they had a great record that season, and they went up against the Utah Jazz. But George Karl, their head coach, had a bout with cancer that he had to step away from the team, and then Adrian Dantley had to step in. And that completely changed the trajectory as well as the whole system that the Denver Nuggets were running. So there was always circumstances that affected his ability to be able to win, and just the circumstances that he was placed in, especially in the early part of his career. So he was in a bloodbath Western Conference. In the 2007 going into 2008 season, I remember going into the 2008 playoffs, the Denver Nuggets finished as the 8th seed and they won 50 games that season. So that goes on to show you how tough the Western Conference was. And also, who did they play in the first round? They played against Kobe Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers. And that year, Kobe Bryant was the MVP, and they went on to go to the NBA Finals. After his stint with the Nuggets, he went on to play for the New York Knicks. And we know what happened there. The Knicks were in the Eastern Conference, and there was a certain guy in the Eastern Conference that was too busy stacking the deck and making super teams. And of course, we know Phil Jackson later went on to join the Knicks, and he was doing a bunch of odd things with the roster, hiring Derek Fisher over a more proven coach, and not even allowing Derek Fisher to coach the team the way he wanted to, but forcing him to do things the Phil Jackson way and not adapting to the times in which they were playing in. And then also, too, let's not forget when he traded away J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert, guys who were key factors in the New York Knicks offense, and basically giving them away to the Cleveland Cavaliers for damn near nothing in exchange. So there was a lot of things that were going on, and there was a lot of BS that Carmelo Anthony dealt with throughout his career that did more to hinder his ability to win and become a champion, more so than just making a blanket statement that, oh, Carmelo Anthony wasn't a winner, because that couldn't be any further from the truth. Now, people can say what they want to say about Melo, but he was someone that got it out of the mud and did it the hard way. He wasn't someone that was trying to spend his prime years building super teams and trying to stack the deck. He didn't even get really into the whole super team thing until after his stint with the Knicks when he joined the Oklahoma City Thunder. But by that time, he was reaching the end of his prime, and also, too, the entire NBA landscape had changed because you had what was going on in the Eastern Conference with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then you also had Kevin Durant too making one of the weakest moves, if not the weakest move in NBA history, joining a 73-9 team. So by that time, the NBA landscape had changed completely, and he was joining the OKC Thunder not as a guy who built that team, but rather someone who was a late addition to that team. But he went on to join the Rockets, and after having a brief stint with the Rockets, we know that he was blackballed for quite some time. But I'm glad that the Portland Trail Blazers gave him a chance, and he was able to experience a resurgence in his career. He was primarily being used as a catch-and-shoot player, but he was still a reliable scorer, and he was a silent leader for that team that they needed him to be. And then he went on to have a stint with the Lakers, and unfortunately, the Lakers didn't make it to the playoffs the one season that he was there. And it's not because of Carmelo's lack of production, but because the so-called leader of the Lakers at that time actually lacked the intangibles on playing winning basketball to get them to the playoffs. And I still think Carmelo Anthony should have been afforded an opportunity after his time with the Lakers, but I believe that there was politics involved that kept him out of the league and eventually forced him into retirement. Now, in addition to his playing career, he was also inducted into the Hall of Fame for being a member of the 2008 USA Olympics team, the Redeem Team. Now, when it comes to Olympics basketball, he is one of, if not the greatest player in Olympics basketball history. As I mentioned, he was a member of the 2008 Redeem Team, and he won 3 gold medals while being a member of the US Olympic team. And he was really the leader of the Olympic team alongside of Kobe Bryant. And then he later became the captain and the leader once Kobe Bryant no longer competed in Olympics basketball. In his Hall of Fame speech itself, he discussed many important things from having a dream to pursuing them. He discussed the significance of having a support system. He also discussed the importance of having a father and fatherhood. Although Carmelo lost his father when he was just 2 years old, you can see that his father's passing meant a lot to him and it really left an imprint on him. Now, I remember in his biography that I had growing up, I got this at the conclusion of his rookie season, but I remember having that book growing up. He actually discussed a lot about not having his father around, right? And then also too the emotional turmoil that it took on him and that it had on him. So for him to acknowledge the importance of fatherhood, I think it was a great thing, right? Especially in the climate and the times in which we're living in, where fathers are oftentimes demonized or dismissed or undermined altogether. So it was really good to hear him discuss that. Overall, I thought he had a great speech and I thought it was very authentic and true to who he was as a person, right? Like I said, he is someone that got it out of the mud and he put in work to get to where he is. And one of my fondest memories from Carmelo Anthony's career, and to the people hearing this, it might not seem like a big deal to you guys, but to me, in the moment that it was happening, it represented not just his character and who he was, but what he stood for and the principles he stood for. So I want to say that it was December 2014, and the Knicks were having a rough season. And Carmelo at the time was dealing with a knee injury, and the Knicks were scheduled to have a game against the Raptors. They were on the road playing in Toronto. And I remember I bought tickets to this game well in advance before he ever experienced any injury. So that game, I remember that Carmelo was listed as questionable. And I remember thinking to myself how disappointed I was going to be had he not played because, like I said, I already bought these tickets and I was looking forward to seeing him play. So I wanted to know, is this guy going to play? Is he not going to play? I was really contemplating it and thinking about it. But at the same time, I also understood that he was harboring a knee injury. So it's not like the guy didn't want to play. It's just he was hurt. So we didn't know if he was going to or not. And I remember it was an afternoon game. So there was a very short window for him to make a decision. And at the last minute, while I was actually making my way to the game, Carmelo Anthony was going to play. So I just remember I was very happy that he was going to be playing. And I thought to myself, despite the fact that he had a knee injury and that this was a road game, I might have not gotten the chance to see him play, but he still made the effort to show up and play in that game. And not only did he play in that game, he went on to score, I want to say, at least 20 points. And he was putting in work that game. So to me, that speaks to his character and his approach to the game. Despite him having a reason to sit out, he made that effort in a road game to show up, play, and give maximum effort on the court. And the fact that he was on a bad knee and he still managed to score at least, I think it was at least 20 points. It could have been more, but I know 20 points is the minimum. That period of my life, I remember I was a university student and getting these tickets was crazy, but it's a memory that still sticks with me. So when people discuss Carmelo Anthony, and there are different narratives about him and the kind of player that he was, I have a very distinct and direct memory that I can think back to that tells me otherwise. He did have a commitment to the game. He did play the game hard. He did give the game everything that he had. There may have been some mistakes or missteps that we could look back at his career and nitpick at, but one thing that we can say is that he never cheated the game or cheated the fans. When we look at the current NBA landscape, there are not many players that we could look at that have that approach or have that mentality. So in that respect, Carmelo Anthony is in a rare class. Guys like Jordan, Kobe, Iverson, Carmelo, these are just some of the guys who had a genuine passion and fire for the game. They will suit up and play at all costs. Now, obviously, there's other guys out there as well, but these are just the guys that come to my mind at the time I'm recording this right now when discussing guys who had a passion for the game, regardless. So much respect to Carmelo Anthony on his induction into the Hall of Fame. He's definitely one of the greatest scorers and players to ever play. Now, in my opinion, he has one of the greatest, if not the greatest shooting form of a player that I've ever seen. And also, the mechanics on his shot were incredible. He had a very smooth, pure, fluid game, but he could also get physical and play rough when he needed to. And let's not forget, he is one of the most clutch players to ever play in history. With the game on the line, he is someone who you want the basketball in his hands for the final shot. And it's not something that he developed into or that he grew into. No, he was clutch from the moment he took the floor in his rookie season. The amount of game winners that I've seen him hit, including in person. I remember I went to a Raptors and Portland Trail Blazers game. It was back in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. I think it was the last basketball game that I attended before the pandemic started. And that game, the Portland Trail Blazers were down damn near the entire game. But they rallied and got back into the game. And I remember with the game on the line, Carmelo Anthony caught the ball, drove, and then he took a jump shot right at the top of the key and hit the game winner.
Defended by Hollis Jefferson. C.J. Holden sweeps it low to the floor outside of Carmelo. Head down, 15-footer away. Got it! Carmelo Anthony!
So this is who he is and what he did regularly on a night in, night out basis throughout his career. So like I said, man, much respect to Carmelo Anthony on his Hall of Fame induction and definitely one of my favorite players to play the game. Oh, and I have to mention this. I'm sorry. Another thing that I have to mention. My two favorite players growing up were Allen Iverson, who is my all-time favorite player, and Carmelo Anthony. So I remember watching them go back and forth whenever they'd play against each other. And I think even Iverson hit a game winner against the Nuggets at one point in their battles against each other. But growing up, I was so excited that they had become teammates, and I was ecstatic for that season and a half that they played together. You could even tell by my background. I got an Iverson and Melo poster right there. So the time that they spent playing together, that was some of the most fun, incredible, and exciting basketball that I have ever seen. And I really wish they could have gone a lot further in the playoffs and maybe even won a championship together. I would have loved to have seen that, but it is what it is. Things happened the way that they did. Like I said, it was a tough Western Conference to play in. But seeing my two favorite players at that time be teammates growing up, to me, that was an exciting time in basketball, and it was a rare experience that I got to have. So to see Iverson, who made it to the Hall of Fame in 2016, be there on that stage to induct Carmelo Anthony into the Hall of Fame, now that was an incredible full circle moment for me personally, growing up watching these guys. So like I said, man, shout out to Carmelo Anthony and much respect to him. But that's all I got for you guys today. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your people. You guys can also follow me and the podcast on social media. You guys can check out my books. All of the links will be in the description. Until next time.